Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Sarah Avery and I am the Executive Director of Quanta Change. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, do you feel like you just absolutely have to do things in the very best way possible, always? Maybe this probably has to do with big things in your life, like how you do your job, maybe how you went through school, how you raise your family, how you take care of yourself. But maybe does it also extend to maybe the very smallest things in your life, like how you weed your garden, or how maybe you figure out the best hair scrunchie to get. Does that sound familiar? Maybe you do a lot of research or a lot of planning or a lot of figuring out every single step and every single component of something before you ever even think about getting started? Are there maybe spreadsheets involved? Yeah. So if you can relate to any of this, I can relate to all of that. And so you're not alone. And I have been helping people with this and seeing this in my clientele for the last 22 years, and in addition to seeing it in myself. So I wonder if you're thinking, hey, wait a second. Usually on these videos you talk about problems that we can solve through Quanta Change. Wait a second, are you saying this is a problem, Sarah? Are you trying to say that there's learned distress involved in just doing things the best possible way, and in being a good planner, in researching the best way to do things? Yeah, I actually am saying that. So you're probably thinking, well, wait a second, everybody does it this way, right? Like, this is how everybody sees the world. This is how everybody knows that this is how everything gets done, right? It's true that we all really we all think that everyone comes at life the same way we do. And we can even meet people and think, wow, how could they possibly see things that way? And yet we still think, no, really everybody comes at things the same way I do. But it's actually not true. Believe it or not, if you're this kind of person that I've been describing, like me, would you believe that there are people who just go to the store and just grab the first microwave they see on the shelf because they like it, and without doing any research before they go to the store, or the first vacuum cleaner they see, or whatever? It's true. There are people who do that, and life actually works just fine for them, generally. So I know that might be shocking, and I know I can't relate to it either. But truly, there are folks who don't feel this internal pressure to always research, plan, do everything the best possible way. So as you can tell, I am saying this can really be a problem. So I'm wondering if you've noticed that over time, it's taking more of your time to come to decisions, to plan things out, to make sure you have everything in place. Are you finding that it's getting harder to make decisions? It's getting in the way of you making decisions and getting things done. Are you finding that you're procrastinating as a result of it? You can't even get to that point of planning because you're worried that you're not going to do it the best possible way. Or maybe you've even, I have done this, done something, finished something, made a decision, and even then for a while afterwards, you're worrying, was that the right decision? You feel some sort of unease about it. And when you really check in, you think, oh, it's about that. And I'm still worried that it wasn't the best possible thing. Can you relate to any of this? That's where it starts to become a problem, because it's starting to really put some sand in the gears of getting some stuff done in your life, right? Are you are you feeling that? So if so, have you done some work on this in some way? Maybe you've done some therapy or some kind of self-help work. And are you seeing results? Is life working more smoothly for you? Are you able to make decisions more quickly, easily? If so, that's fantastic. But if not, if the ways that you've tried to help yourself fix this problem, make things run more smoothly, get this perfectionism out of the way for yourself, if these methods haven't worked, it's not your fault. It's not because you haven't worked hard enough at it, you haven't tried hard enough. It's because those methods that you've been trying have not been able to get your learned distress out of the way. So let's talk about what that learned distress is. So learned distress is the reason that you feel so much pressure to always have to do everything the best possible way or else. So learned distress is the Quanta Change term for the feeling that you absorbed very early in life, that there's something wrong with you being just the way that you are. And as you were absorbing this learned distress, up until the age of 2.5 years old, from the people around you, your brain was also developing a survival mechanism that allowed you to fit really well, kind of like a puzzle piece, with those people around you, your parents, your older siblings, your other early caregivers in life. And not only did it help you fit well, but it helped you, well, survive or cope with or control or manage this awful feeling that there's something wrong with you. And there are 6 basic patterns of learned distress and the survival mechanism that goes along with it. And at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you what those 6 patterns are and share how you can learn which of the patterns you have for free. But for now, what I'll say is that there are some of those patterns, but not all, that really have this built-in sort of pressure that you have to do things more perfectly all the time, that you have to do everything the right way or else. And learned distress and its survival mechanism really turns off the natural core well-being within you that could allow you to just know, this is what's right for me. Let's go this way. Let's decide this. Of course, there are things that involve work, involve planning, but if you're finding that now everything does, that's a really good sign that your learned distress is involved, and it's turned off this inner sort of radar or voice that says, this is what's right for me. Let's do this. That can really make things so much more easily for you. And so what it causes you to do is go to external means. So you have to research, you have to plan every little step out, you have to figure out exactly how things are going to go and have it all planned before you ever even start into something. That's really learned distress and your survival mechanism, requiring you to do all of this extra work a lot of the time to just get things done or make decisions. So I can give you a great example of this that was a way that it was, this thing in me was really getting in the way when I was in my training for my first career as a violinist. I've been doing this for two and a half decades, but before that I was a professional violinist. And I remember when I was in grad school, I was playing this sonata, the Fauré sonata, and in the scherzo it requires this sort of quick back and forth between the piano and the violin. And I was trying to count my entrances. I was waiting, listening to the piano, but I was really counting my entrance, counting their bars, and trying to, on the basis of counting, kind of planning, it's kind of a form of planning, make my entrance. And I was always late. And I just remember my teacher saying, Sarah, just listen and react. Listen and react. And I just thought, oh, I can't do it. I need to work at this. I need to plan this out. Can you relate to that? I did eventually. I was able to do it. I was able to make the entrances correctly eventually, but it took a lot of extra work to overcome this survival mechanism for me. And it was really frustrating, not only for me, but I'm pretty sure for my teacher and my collaborative pianist. So if you can relate to any of this, and you've done some work on it, maybe you've learned that you don't have to be perfect. Have you heard that? Have you said it for yourself? I've learned that I don't need to be perfect. But then maybe, like lots of my clients and me, you're still feeling like you have to be perfect. Having learned it on a rational, intellectual level hasn't helped you change the feeling internally that's really pressing at you, saying, no, but you still have to be perfect, right? Can you relate? Yeah. So why is that? Why hasn't learning with your great big rational brain, which we all have, helped you solve this? Well, it's because when your rational brain is operating, there's a wall of protection and resistance to change set up around your sense of self. This is the container that stores how you feel about being yourself. It contains your learned distress, your survival mechanism for dealing with it, and your core natural well-being. And when your rational brain is operating, this wall of protection is up around it, and it says, you are not going to change my survival mechanism. This is how I've survived. You're not changing it. So the good news is that even though this roadblock through the rational brain exists, Quanta Change, this work that I've been doing for the last couple decades, was developed to get through that rational brain roadblock. And the way that Quanta Change does that is that it works with your brain during sleep for two reasons. The first reason is that sleep is when your rational brain is entirely shut down. So as your rational brain shuts down, that wall of protection around your sense of self gets deactivated, and all of a sudden we can access the part of your brain that stores how you feel about being yourself. And the second reason for sleep is that sleep is when your sense of self is getting recharged. It's been recharging almost entirely over your life with your learned distress, with that awful feeling that there's something wrong with you. But what Quanta Change allows you to do is tell your brain, instead of recharging with learned distress, one more night, I get to recharge now. I want to recharge with well-being. This is the feeling at your core that you are just great, just being yourself. It's the feeling that you have everything you need, that you can trust your inner resources, and that life is good for you, that you are good. So as you recharge with well-being instead of learned distress, layers of learned distress get peeled off permanently, out of the way, and your natural well-being expands to take the place that learned distress has been sitting. And in general, you feel better and your life works better as your well-being becomes the basis of more and more of your life. And in a more specific way, in this arena that we're talking about today, what that looks like is, first of all, you start to feel like you are good enough just as you are right now, so that you don't have to try harder to be more perfect and do more things perfectly in order to try and make yourself okay, and trying to make yourself good enough finally. So another way that this happens is that the best way to do things just kind of starts to show up sometimes without you having to work at it, research it, and you just feel like you can go with it. You don't feel like you have to second guess yourself like you have your whole life maybe as you're trying to make decisions and plan things out. And really that comes from your internal well-being radar having turned on, and you just know what's right. You just know what's best. You just know which way to go. So let me give you an example of that. So here's a client of mine who was a big planner. Now, every day of her life had a plan to it. Not only her work days, but her weekends. Each day also had a list, a to-do list. Not only did every day, every week have a plan to it, but she had plans going out years in advance. This is what I'm going to do when this happens, this transaction happens in my life, I'm going to do this. And then she felt required to stick to that plan and just make it happen. Even if something had come up and something had changed, she felt like, well, it doesn't matter. I've still got to do that whole list, even though I had to drop everything and pick my kid up from school or something like that. The list still had to happen. And she was finding this was getting exhausting. And I wonder if you can relate to that. Is your life planned out in detail in advance? And how's that going for you? Is it helping, or is it starting to create more and more anxiety for you? So if so, here's what started to happen for her. So as she was unlearning layers of this learned distress, things started to get easier. She started to say things like, wow, Sarah, you know what? I just got up Saturday morning and I thought, I don't feel like doing my list right now. So I laid around and watched a movie for a few hours. And it was really nice. And then I got to the place where I thought, okay, that was really nice. And then I got up and I thought, oh, take the first thing off my list. And before I knew it, the whole list was done, but it felt totally different. It didn't feel like, okay, I got to get up and make myself do this. It was, I did something for me. I took some time out, and then I kind of just felt like doing something. Or maybe I got to Sunday and I hadn't touched anything on my list. And maybe I got through the whole weekend and I looked at the list and I thought, you know what? That's fine. That didn't need to happen anyway. She said it was so much easier, so much less anxiety from just going through week to week. She also started to see some big things in her life. Like she'd had a plan for when her son graduated from high school. When he graduated from high school, she was going to move across the country. She was going to do this, this, and this. And in the meantime, since she had made that plan, she'd started dating somebody, and she was in this relationship that was going pretty well. And she was feeling a lot of anxiety because she thought, well, how do I stick to the plan and have this relationship? That was a wrench in the gears. And well, now I have to make decisions about that. Is he going to move across the country with me? Or are we going to break up? I got to decide. And she was kept unlearning more. And then all of a sudden she went, wait a second. I don't have to make any of these decisions right now. There's nothing in me that has to move right now or has to make this particular decision right now. I can just let this unfold and see what happens. And she said, maybe if you're hearing that, you're feeling a little bit anxious. What she said was, I think I would have felt anxious before, but now this feels great to me. I can just ride through my life based on how I feel and what feels best to me, rather than having to stick to the plan and the spreadsheets and the long-term planning that I had done. I've still got long-term plans. She was still looking after herself in every, important way. She wasn't throwing anything out the window in terms of really taking care of herself, but she wasn't beholden to this short-term and long-term plan that she had been. And she was finding little things like she'd, I think around the same time, she was looking for a photographer to take some family pictures before her son left after high school, and to go off to what was next for him. And she said, well, I got onto this Facebook group and I started into the research process. Maybe if you're a spreadsheet person, you know that there's a spreadsheet involved, and you start putting everything on the actual spreadsheet or the spreadsheet in your mind as you're researching. And she was getting ready to do that as she looked through a local Facebook group to find some photographer possibilities. And then she ran across this one in the Facebook group, and she started reading what everybody said about her. And she said, wow, that one sounds great. I think I'll just go with it. And she did, with no further research, and it worked out great. So if you're a planner and you felt rising anxiety or procrastination or difficulty in making decisions or second guessing yourself all the time, what I want you to know is that change in this realm really is very possible. I've seen it for myself. I've seen it for lots of my clients like this one over the last 22 years. So if you're interested in finding out maybe how you could see this kind of change happen for yourself, the first thing that you're going to do is just find out which one of these 6 patterns of learned distress and survival mechanism you have. And these 6 are called the idealist, the perfectionist, the optimist, the caregiver, the defeatist, and the dictator, or benevolent dictator, you can call that one. And so the reason to find out which one of these patterns you have is not so you can further research and examine the problem and plan out how you're going to counter this negative stuff that's trapped in you. Not at all. Because I know maybe you're somebody who's done tons of work on yourself. Maybe you've done decades of work on yourself, and you're sick to death of examining your childhood and where the pattern came from, and a different personality test that tells you some other facet of it. So the reason that you're finding out which of these patterns you have is not for all of that in-depth examination. It's to find out what you're going to be getting rid of through the Quanta Change process, what you're going to be peeling off layers of permanently, so that your natural well-being can expand and fill in your life and and really become the operating force in your life so that you can feel better, so that things can work more easily than they have for especially maybe the last few years. And so if you're interested in doing that, the way that you find out which pattern you have is to go to my website, and you're going to take a free, in-depth, scientifically validated personality test that measures your learned distress. I'm going to graph your answers and send you a free personalized report with your graphed answers, your pattern of learned distress, how you've been surviving with it, and how Quanta Change typically helps people feel better, helps their lives work better when they have that particular pattern. So to do that, you go to my website, Quanta Change, QUANTA change.com, and click on the free report button. And I'll send you your report, and you can see how that lands with you. So if you're feeling like life has been grinding to a halt a little bit because of this pattern, because of this perfectionism, because of this need to research and plan and really figure everything out before you ever start, change really is possible. So I hope this has felt helpful to you. I hope that you are feeling a little bit hopeful about this if this has been really kind of vexing you. And thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you will join me again next Friday to hear another way in which Quanta Change really can help you feel good being you. Thank you.